In maritime law, there is a hidden formula. It is used by accountants who never leave their air-conditioned offices. They weigh the cost of a simple repair against the cost of a settlement for a dead sailor. And sometimes, they decide it is cheaper to let them die. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is how the industry works. It has a name. It is called cost-benefit analysis. And when the math is done wrong, ships sink and people drown. Today we look at 5 ships that went down because someone, somewhere, decided that a few $100s was worth more than a human life. On March 6, 1987, the ferry Herald of Free Enterprise left the Belgian port of Zeebrugge. It carried 459 passengers and 80 crew on a routine crossing to Dover. 90 seconds after leaving port, the ship was on its side. 193 people were dead. The bow doors had been left open. Water flooded the car deck, and the ferry capsized before anyone understood what was happening. Passengers drowned in their seats. Children were ripped from their parents' arms. Bodies floated in the dark water of the English Channel. This was not an accident. This was corporate penny pinching with a body count. For years, captains had begged the company for one simple thing: an indicator light on the bridge that would show if the bow doors were closed. The cost was £500. Management said no, not because they could not afford it, but because they believed the crew should simply do their jobs. Their official response was that it was not their responsibility to ensure the crew follows procedures. On that night, Assistant Boatswain Mark Stanley was responsible for closing the doors, but his shift had ended. He was asleep in his cabin. There was no system to check if he had done his job. No backup, no warning light. Captain David Lurie sailed his ship into the sea without knowing the front door was wide open. The investigation found that Townsend Thoresen had ignored repeated safety warnings. Internal memos proved they knew the risk. The company was charged with corporate manslaughter. The case collapsed on a technicality. No executive served a single day in prison. They spent millions on lawyers to avoid accountability, then rebranded as P&O Ferries and kept operating. They saved £500, and it cost 193 lives. On February 12, 1983, the cargo ship Marine Electric was carrying coal along the Atlantic coast when it sailed into a winter storm off Virginia. Within hours, it would become a frozen graveyard. The Marine Electric was 39 years old. Its hull was riddled with rust. The hatch covers that sealed the cargo holds were so corroded that crew members stuffed them with rags and cement to stop leaks. Everyone on board knew the ship was rotting. They called it a floating coffin. Coast Guard inspectors knew too. They had documented the problems in previous inspections, but the shipping company pressured them to pass the vessel anyway. Repairs would cost tens of thousands of dollars. Inspectors were quietly encouraged to look the other way. This is safety theater. The paperwork said the ship was seaworthy. The reality was a death sentence waiting to be signed. When the storm hit, waves tore through the weakened hatches. Water poured into the cargo holds. The Marine Electric rolled over and sank in minutes. The water temperature was 37 degrees. Most of the crew died from hypothermia, floating in their life jackets, waiting for rescue that came too late. 34 men were on board. Only 3 survived. The disaster led to a congressional investigation that exposed widespread corruption in the Coast Guard inspection system. New regulations were passed. But the executives who pressured inspectors, who saved money by not replacing those hatch covers, walked away free. They saved a few $1,000s on repairs, and it cost 31 lives. On December 20th, 1987, the MV Doña Paz was sailing from Leyte to Manila in the Philippines. It was 2 days before Christmas. Families were traveling home for the holidays. What happened that night is the deadliest peacetime maritime disaster in history, and almost no one outside the Philippines has ever heard of it. The Doña Paz was licensed to carry 1,518 passengers. That night, there were over 4,000 people on board. No accurate manifest existed because the company didn't bother keeping one. Life jackets were locked in storage to prevent theft. The ship had no radio to call for help. At 10:30 p.m., the Doña Paz collided with the MT Vector, a small oil tanker. The Vector was carrying 8,800 barrels of petroleum. Its captain was unlicensed. Its crew was undertrained. The tanker itself had been declared unseaworthy and should never have been at sea. The collision ignited the oil. Both ships became floating infernos. Passengers jumped into water covered in burning fuel. Families burned alive in their cabins. Children drowned in the darkness. Over 4,386 people died. Some estimates put the real number above 4,500. The Doña Paz had no functioning safety equipment because the company decided maintenance was too expensive. The Vector was at sea because its owners chose profit over compliance. 2 companies, 2 sets of executives, 0 prison sentences. Both paid settlements that cost less than 1 year's profit. They saved a few $1,000s on compliance, and it cost over 4,000 lives. On September 29, 2015, the cargo ship Faro left Jacksonville, Florida, heading for Puerto Rico. Hurricane Joaquin was building in the Atlantic. Captain Michael Davidson knew the storm was there. He sailed toward it anyway. The Faro was 40 years old. Its primary weather system displayed data that was 6 hours out of date. A modern system would have cost around $15,000. The company, Tote Maritime, decided the old system was good enough. But this was not just about equipment. Tote had created a culture where delays were unacceptable. Captains who arrived late faced consequences. Captains who took risks to stay on schedule were rewarded. Davidson had worked there for decades. He understood the unspoken rule: the cargo comes first. His officers questioned the decision to sail so close to the storm. Second mate Danielle Randolph texted her mother that she was struggling to understand the captain's logic, but Davidson was following the logic his company had taught him. On October 1st, the Faro sailed directly into Hurricane Joaquin. Winds hit 130 miles per hour. A ventilation scuttle that had been reported as needing repair failed, flooding the cargo hold. The ship lost propulsion and drifted helplessly in the hurricane. Captain Davidson's final transmission said, "Tell them we have a hull breach. We are in dire straits." The Faro sank with all hands. All 33 crew members died. Tote Maritime paid settlements to the families. No executive faced criminal charges. The company blamed the dead captain, the man who had spent his career following their rules and who could not defend himself from the grave. They saved $15,000 on a weather system, and it cost 33 lives. On June 21, 2008, the MV Princess of the Stars departed Manila for Cebu City in the Philippines. Typhoon Frank was approaching. The government had issued storm warnings. Other shipping companies canceled their voyages. Sulpicio Lines decided to sail anyway. The Princess of the Stars was carrying 851 registered passengers, though the actual number was likely higher. It was also carrying a secret cargo: 10 metric tons of the pesticide endosulfan, a substance so toxic that international law required special handling. The company never declared it. As the typhoon intensified, the captain requested permission to return to Manila. The company refused. Turning back would have meant refunding tickets. By that afternoon, the Princess of the Stars was caught in winds of 90 miles per hour. It capsized within sight of land. Rescue operations were delayed because no one knew the ship was carrying poison. When divers finally reached the wreck, they found hundreds of bodies trapped inside. Only 57 people survived. More than 800 people died. Sulpicio Lines had a history of disasters. The MV Princess of the Orient sank in 1998, killing 150 people. The company kept operating. After the Princess of the Stars, the government finally revoked their license. No executive went to prison. The families received compensation worth less than the company spent fighting the lawsuits. They saved the cost of one canceled voyage, and it cost more than 800 lives. 5 ships, 5 boardroom decisions, over 5,000 dead, a 500-pound indicator light, rusted hatch covers, missing life jackets, an outdated weather system, a voyage that should have been canceled. None of these disasters were caused by the sea. They were caused by men in suits who calculated that safety was too expensive. Men who weighed the cost of a repair against the cost of a wrongful death settlement and decided to roll the dice. This is the price of greed, and the people who pay it are never the ones who set it. The next tragedy isn't being caused by a storm. It's being caused right now, in an office somewhere, by someone trying to hit their end-of-year target. Which of these companies do you think committed negligent homicide? Tell me in the comments. Thanks for watching.